Hi, it's Tim from Toy Tinker Tim, and in this episode we're going to take a look at a 1982 G.I. Joe Ranger figure with the code name of Stalker, back before the term stalker had such a negative connotation to it here. But this little guy here, I have discovered he has developed a crack in this lower waist part here. It's almost like a cod piece type section of it, and so I've got the little bits that were just loose that had basically just kind of crumbled out. So we're going to take a look and examine the area here to see about the break, how clean is that, and what our best option is going to be here to reassemble him. Even the loose figures you'll find are going loose, as in pieces loose, on eBay. They're going for quite a bit of money here, so I would rather just to try to make the repair here something that's going to be a good long-term repair, nothing fragile when we're done, and so we can keep his value and display ability and functioning there as usual. Then we'll take a good look at the packaging too here as well when we're done. Just trying to get his gun out of his hand here to bring him down here to work on. His thumb is snapped off here as well now. So his value just kind of continues to drop here, but we'll make a repair on that one too here. And that just snapped off into oblivion. I mean, it just, I heard a slight ricocheting echo in the background, and I have no idea where that thing's gone to. So we'll be reconstructing one of those as part of this project as well. So, alright, so looking at the figure here, everything else so far appears to be intact, and from what I can find on him is that it's a pretty clean break. If I can get these pieces to realign again here once on camera. So I think the trickiest part is going to be juggling these other pieces in order to get things lined up. So I'm going to have to immobilize the legs and whatnot here to get that done. So what I'm going to try to look at to do here, I believe, to make this all work real good, there's screws into the upper leg here to hold the two halves together. So just to give myself a good clear working area, I'm going to attempt to just disconnect the legs here from this ball joint area, so I can work well and give that glue a good chance to really bond without something kind of weakening that connection point there. So just to give you a heads up too here, you know, when you take out the screw, be very careful. This one, the screw head actually even has paint where it was painted, so I didn't want to scuff or take any chance of scraping any of that off. So just a heads up to be careful on that. And then I just want to give you a chance here to see as I'm going. Once you get the two halves, once it's unscrewed, what you're looking at here on the inside of that figure up in the hip here, it's notched in where this ball section here is slid in. Get you a good view of that. So now I'm going to just try to slide this down if I can. It's kind of a tight fit. Let's see here. So I'll push the other leg, hip, waist up to get some pressure off of there, get that to slide forward there some. I'm hoping I can show you that there. So then that comes off pretty easily. All right. So I got the waste off, and the fact that I got the waste off, gee, that's not so humorous in itself, but remember when I was saying things seemed quite corroded in age, and you know, things are fragile. Yeah, sure enough. So now the pin snapped right in half there. I don't know if I can get you in to see pretty well. It just cracked, and this poor thing is just getting worse as I go. So that will be another step here, is we're going to make a new a new hip pin to go between the legs there to connect those. So we're going to get to learn a little bit more than what we thought here. It's all right. We're learning. It seems like a disaster right now, like a train wreck. It just keeps going and going. So, well, all right. I think right now what I'm going to go on to here, though, is to just glue in this piece here, and then we'll get into the pin here for the waist. What I'm going to do here first is I'm just cleaning off the area that I'm going to glue, and with some alcohol, rubbing alcohol. That'll get off any, of course, dirt, but oily residue, whatever. It's cleaning up the surface there that we're going to work with. So what I'm using is a 5-minute epoxy here. You just squirt it out, comes out double mix. Scrap piece of paper, squirt it out, mix it up, because all that's going to have to get pitched when you're done. So we've got the repaired cod piece part of the hip here, glued in with a 5-minute epoxy, and we got up a pretty good nice flush edge there on the front. The back, there's a little bit of excess bead, and that's fine. It's not going to interfere with anything, so we're good to go there. And next I'm taking a look here at the connector piece here, this pin like that had cracked right out in the middle, that goes to fit into this socket on either side of the leg. Fitting these two pieces together, we've got that coming into just under 5/8 of an inch, and that'll be the next project here to fashion a replacement there. So how this pin goes is it sits into this socket, and trying to get a hold of the other half of the leg here real quick. Sits into there, comes out through this notch. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking a wire brad nail, and I have cut one down to the total length of this piece, and I sanded down on the edge here just to smooth and round that off some more here to get my fit for in there. And then for the other end, for the other ball of this, I'm using the Quick Steel Epoxy Putty, and I've used this in other videos if you've seen some of my other repair ones, and there is actually like a steel type, I guess, compound in there. But to give you an idea, this is from a previous batch excess that was left, but it's like rock hard stuff. And so I'm going to just form a small ball or bead onto the other end here. After that sets, I don't think it's going to just totally adhere, so I'll be mixing up the two-part epoxy and plug it down in and glue that other ball onto the end here. When I'm mixing up this epoxy putty, I'll also roll out some here to form as a shape for this thumb, to make a replacement thumb on here. And so I'll be kind of doing a double double dose batch here for this, and to start recreating his thumb over here on that hand. So that's the next step. This project has had quite a few twists and turns just going into it, where one thing's led to another. It started out just with this cracked piece here that we were able to get fixed, and then through corrosion here and age, this center pin here that connects between the legs cracked out right through the middle, and so then this is how that's turned out here. So what I ended up doing, because this epoxy resin material, it adheres strongly against to the metal, so I decided to just clip off the head and replace and make that also with the epoxy resin onto there. So just to give you an idea of the fit here, you know, there's a lot of filing and sanding involved, but we've got you know, all the good fit and range of motion here as well. And let me find our other half here just to give you an idea of how that all hooks on in there, like so. There we go. So we've got all our regular range of motion from the original piece, but going into that, I thought, yeah, I've seen often where the rubber O-rings have rotted out on these guys, so decided to go ahead and take off the chest piece. There's just one screw from in the back holding the front chest piece on, and taking a look in there, I can see there are cracks forming in the rubber around, and so I believe that's what I'm going to go ahead and do here too, since I've got him in this much of work. Just go ahead and get that changed out, and we'll replace that as well. So I just wanted to give you a chance to take a good look here at the condition of that rubber O-ring. It's over 35 years old in the figure, and it's really mashed and flattened out in some areas, and I'm sure it's just a matter of time before that's going to go out. But to the way that the assembly was done with this wire here, it's just twisted over, and that's what goes down into the waist, and then that leg pin that we recreated that slides through that opening there. So that's all that's involved to that. The O-ring is degraded so badly. It's just warped and flattened out, and almost perforated through there from wear and age. But I believe it is, from what I can try to squeeze into a shape here, it's called a number 8 O-ring is the size. And let me look at the package here to give you a little bit more. That is 9/16 outer diameter and 3/8 inch inner diameter by 3/32 of an inch. And I imagine that's the thickness they're getting into there. So that's what I'm going to use here, number 8 O-ring here to replace this with. So I'm going to go with that. I've decided, before I go into full reassembly mode here, to repair the hand here with the broken thumb on there. I just think it'll be easier to work on this arm that way versus it already attached on the figure. So earlier, when I was working with that quick steel epoxy putty that I used for the hip, I just rolled out some excess to use for a thumb piece here. So I'll clean up this edge, sand down a broken edge here to make that joint, and then shape, and I'll use the epoxy cement to glue this onto the hand, and then do my final sanding and filing and painting here then as well. Just a progress shot here to show with the piece of the epoxy resin. They're glued on now initially. So now the sanding and filing and shaping will start here to get that into a pose and position, length, everything to resemble the other hand there, the grip. After a lot of fine sanding here and everything with the needle files, I think I've gotten that pretty much to what I can hope to be and expect to be a pretty good match in there. Comparatively to the other hand, so I know it's not perfect, but I'll clean up any little slight edges left on there, and then I'll go ahead and paint it here to match in, and then put a sealer over that. You can check my other videos too, where I go into painting even like on eyebrows and whatnot. It's pretty much the same procedure, paints and everything involved there. So that's a look here before we get into the painted version of it here. Before I put everything back together here, the arms reattached, I just want to give a quick overview just to show the filed, sanded, and at least base coat painted here for that hand. I've put a sealer on it as well, but I might do a little bit more touch up to match the tone a little bit closer there. But it has turned out pretty good, pretty close. It's nothing that's going to detract or draw your eye right to it, at least though, when you're looking at the figure. So there's that. Okay, so going into reassembly mode here. That little split notched area here in that pelvis, I'm going to put the O-ring up through there. Basically I'm going to feed everything of this figure back through that spot for the lower body, because trying to, there's such a small area to work with. If you are trying to just slide this leg pin through the wire opening down there with the upper half already assembled, it's there's just very little clearance there that you're working with. So there we go. A little bit of patience. Don't rush all this stuff. There we go. Work that wire in there a little bit more. Up to there. Then we'll take this backside right. Hook that up. And pull that up to there. Like so. Make it around our tabs here, the lower waist, like that. Then it's just a matter of laying in the other parts of the figure into their respective notches, and then we'll screw that all back together. There he is, all back together in his 3 3/4 inch articulated body. The thing with putting this gun back in, I'm not so much worried about breaking this out, because even if I try to put it in over here, I'm afraid this thumb here is going to break out. I think with the age, the plastic, there's of course brittleness, but maybe some shrinkage as well. And so if you have an older figure in your collection that's been holding their weapon all these years, don't try to take it out, because I'm afraid it will snap off a thumb in the process there. So he'll be displayed with his weapon, but I'm not going to attempt to put it back into the thumb because I'm afraid of that breakage there. So as promised at the beginning of this episode, we'll take a good look here at the packaging. Fully posable modern Army figure, G.I. Joe Real American Hero, with interchangeable snap-on, stay-on accessories, and they weren't kidding about stay-on. Includes the M32 pulverizer submachine gun. Ranger, codename Stalker. Yes, he's a stalker. We have the older Hasbro logo there, and this was 6,100 assortment, and ages 5 and up. That's the classic there. Create your own G.I. Joe Mobile Strike Force, modern Army action soldiers here. So we go through a limited number of figures that were available through the back here, and of course his command file here on the back, and made and printed in Hong Kong, 1982 Hasbro. Yes, and the name Lonzo R. Wilkinson does not identify any known living person. So if you're out there, Lonzo, sorry, you're not recognized here as being this character. So there is our packaging, nice vibrant colors. Back in the day of Kmart there, $1.99. Another thing vanishing from the landscapes of America here at Kmart stores. So there we go. There's our detailed look at the packaging. All right, so that completes this episode on the restoration, repair, and some information on this classic 3¾ inch G.I. Joe figure. Hit the like if you liked it, share it with some other collectors you know that could use some restoration tips on maintaining their figures. And please consider subscribing to keep up with all the latest episodes as they come out. Thanks for watching.